Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to another tutorial. It's me, IJ, and here is IJ Designs. I would like to say a very big thank you to my returning subscribers. My new subscribers, you guys are amazing. You guys are lovely. You guys are supportive. I don't take it for granted. I appreciate every one of you for supporting me. Thanks a million times. And may God continue to bless us. And I believe I'm meeting you guys in a very good condition. So now let's get into today's tutorial. Today's tutorial is how to draft a strapless tube top. You can also use the upper parts of it to make your yoke blouse. We are going to draft it step by step. It's very easy to draft. We are going to take it one after the other to draft it. I want to make this lovely strapless blouse. I decided to draft it and to show to you guys how you can use it to achieve yours. So without wasting much of your time, let us go to the working table. So now, as you can see, I have inserted my measurements. Let us go through it once more. Here is the starting point and the measurement I'm using. The first measurement is the chest line, which is 8 inches from the shoulder to 8 inches is the chest line. From the shoulder to 10 inches is the bust point. And from the shoulder to 14 inches is the under bust. And to 16 inches is the waist. 22 inches is the hip. And 23 is the seam allowance, as you can see. And also, the shoulder that we are working with is 15 inches divided by 2. You have 7.5 and half inch, 8 inches. So here is my 8 inches. Do you see it? Here is my 8 inches. And the depth of the neckline I used is 3 inches. Here is my 3 inches. And I came down 1 inch as the shoulder slope. And I connected it to the 3 inches, which is the depth. And the length of the neckline, that is the width. The width of the neckline is 3 inches and the depth is 4 inches. That is what you now see as the neckline. So you can determine any form of neckline you want. If you want it to be the V neckline, we are not going to use this in the strapless, but I want to insert it so that it's going to be easy for us and also for us to use it in other things that we want to do. Like I said initially, you can use it to achieve the yoke top. If you want to use the upper part of it as your yoke, you can also do that with this draft we are making now. So this is the neckline. If you want it to be a round neckline or a V neckline, this. So now, having inserted our vertical measurement, we are now going to take our horizontal measurement. So our horizontal measurement, let's assume that this is our material. All the allowances, I'm going to insert it on this drafting paper so that after that, I'll just place it on my material and I cut it out. So this now we assume to be our material. So now, the nipple to nipple measurement we are using is 9 inches. 9 divided by 2, you are going to have 4.5 plus half inch seam allowance. That is 5 inches. That is this line you have seen here from the bust point. I marked 5 inches from the bust point and I bring it down to the length, that is the hem of the top we are making. Then I give it a straight line. That is what we are now saying. So the next thing that we are going to do now is to insert our darts. Being a strapless top that we are making, the upper part of it is going to be tight so that it will not be loose when the person bends down or the person moves. It will not be uncomfortable. So based on that, we are going to take out some inches. And now, from this is 8 inches. That is the shoulder measurement we are using is 8 inches. The 3 inches of the neck opening, let us now see what is left from these 3 inches. What is left from these 3 inches is 5 inches. Do you see it? After taking away the 3 inches as the neck depth, the neck width, then we are left with 5 inches. So this 5 inches now we are going to divide it into 2, and that is 2.5. We are going to mark at 2.5. That is here. Here is our 2.5. So from this 2.5 now, I will connect it to the bust point. You see? Remember, the bust point started, the nipple to nipple measurement started from the bust point. Then I bring it down to the hem of the blouse. That is the 5 inches. I mark it down. So now, dividing this shoulder into 2, I now connected it to the bust point. So now, in doing a strapless top, you need your radius, your bust radius. Some people can use their compass to trace it out. But if you don't have your compass to trace it out, what you have to do, just measure your bust point to your under bust. What do you have? What we have. So from this bust point now to the under bust, we have 4 inches. So this 4 inches, we are going to bring it up to the shoulder level. So from this bust point, we are going to take up 4 inches. We are doing this in order to know where our strapless top is going to start, so that it will cover our body. So now we have now come up to 4 inches from the bust point, the same as we have from the nipple to the under bust. So from this shoulder measurement to the under bust, we have 8 inches. But what we need most is the upper part, which is the radius. That is 4 inches that we now measured from the bust point to the chest area. That is where the strapless tube is going to start. So now, having gotten this, we are getting there. So now, what are we going to do? The next thing we are going to do is to determine our dart. Our dart gives the shape. So now we are going to determine our dart. And our dart, you can take out 1 inches, you can take out 1 inch, you can take out 1.5 inch, depending on how tight you want it to be or how you want your dart to be. But on this tutorial that I'm doing, I like taking out 1/4 inches from the under bust. And on the other side, I'll take also 1/4. This 1/4 that I measured from the under bust, I'm going to bring it down to the hem of the blouse we are making. That is the tube top we are making. So remember, this dart on this side and on this side, when you take it together, you are going to remove 2.5 inches. So the dart we are going to remove now is 2.5 inches. And on this bust point, to make the area of the bust to be a little bit free, you can come down by 1 inch or by 1/2 inches. But I would love to come down by 1/2 inch. And on the upper side, I also go up by 1/2 inch, just to make the area of the bust to be free, so that it doesn't be tight too much or it doesn't point out much, but has to be flat and comfortable. So now I'm going to connect this 1/2 inch to the 1/4 inch that we took away from the under bust. So I'm going to also mark it straight, connect it to the hem of our top. Do you see it? So all these shaded areas are going to go away. This is our dart. Do you see it? This is our dart. And on the upper side, we also need to take away some inches. Because we are making a strapless top, I'm going to take out 1.5 inch. Why am I taking out 1.5 inch? Normally, making other blouses, I take away 1 inch, but I'm taking away 1.5 inch so that it will be tight on the bust area. It will be comfortable. It will not be open when the person bends down or when the person is walking. It won't be open. So based on that, I'm going to take away 1.5 inch on both sides. So here, I'm going to take away 1.5, and here also, I'm going to take away 1.5. And this 1.5, I'll connect it to the half that we came up from the bust point. Do you see it? I now took away 1.5. So on this side, we now took away 3 inches. That is on the upper side. We did it to make the upper side to be closed, not to be open, not to be uncomfortable when the person is walking or dancing or doing whatever, so that it will be fitted on the bust area. So now, having done that, from here now, we are going to connect it to the chest line. It depends on what you want. If you want it to be, sweetheart, you just connect it with your cuff. You connect it with your cuff to the chest line, depending where you want it. Do you see it? If you want it to be curved, you connect it. But if you want it to be straight, you just connect it in this form. You draw it straight. If you want it to be straight, you draw it straight. Do you see it? So now, this is the area that you can use if you want to make it, if you want to use it to be a yoke. This is the area. Then you have to close up this gap. This 3 inches gap, you have to close it up in this form. Then you cut out this. You can also use this as your yoke to make a blouse, if you are making a blouse. So now we are making tube top. That is what we are making. That is what I'm going to use this drafting we are doing to cut out. So based on that, I'm now going to connect this to the armhole. So I'll just use my cuff. And we are making a tubeless top. So I'm going to just connect it in this form. Do you see it? Do you see the shape now? Because it's a tubeless, we are now connecting it in this form. But if you are making it as a yoke, just connect it to the armhole here. Just the armhole here, so that when you cut out this, you're also going to cut out the yoke with a lace or with a tulle or with any fabric of your choice. You can use the upper part as your yoke. So now we are through with our darts, and on the upper side we are through with it. But remember, all this dart that we took away, we are going to replace it. We are going to replace it here. As you can see, I have curved my measurement because I'm using bust 42. 42 divided by 4 is 10.5. That is why I measured my 10.5 here. Do you see it? This is 10.5. And the waist that we are working with is waist 33. 33 divided by 4 is going to give us 8.25, but I make it to be 8.5. So I place it here. Do you see it? And the hip we are using is 39, and 39 divided by 4 will give us 9.75, and this is 9.75. For ease, I make it to 10 inches. That is 2 plus that I added to it. So now it's 10 inches. So this is the line you have not now seen. That is the exact measurement of what we are using. But now, all these darts that we are using, we are going to replace it. Remember, on the darts on the waist, we took away 2.5 inches. So we are going to measure back 2.5 inches. Now I'm using red. I'm going to use black for you to see the extra allowances that we are going to add. So remember here on the waistline, we took away 2.5 inches. So now I'm going to replace the 2.5 inches first here. On the chest line, remember this dart is going out on the chest line. So we are going to replace it, and it's 3 inches. So we now replace 3 inches here. Do you see it? We replace 3 inches here. So remember on the waist, 2.5 inches is also going out. We are going to place our 2.5 back. So whatever you take away as your dart, you have to replace it. Otherwise, your measurement will not be right. So now, having replaced these inches now, we need allowance also to join the front and the back. We are going to add our allowance. What I'm using 1.5 inch as my allowance. So now 1.5 inch I'm using is to turn it over. Remember, 1/2 inch is to make it to look neat if you don't have your zigzag machine. So you use your 1/2 inch to turn the material and 1 inch to close it up. But remember, cutting this out, this one that we are cutting out, we need to join this part to this part. So we need 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here. So altogether, allowance that I'm going to add is 2.5 inches. So now I'll measure my 2.5 inches here. And I'll measure 2.5 inches here. And also on the waist, I'll measure 2.5 inches. And on the chest line, I'll also measure 2.5 inches. Do you see it? So I've measured 2.5 inches as my allowance. So after the exact measurement, the whole measurement we added here is 5 inches. And on the chest line is 5.5 inches. So now let us connect it together. From the waist, I connect to the chest, and I'll now turn my curve and I'll connect it. Do you see it, guys? So now our block is ready. Do you see it? So I'm going to now cut it out. Remember, if you are using it as a yoke, you cut this and you use it. You don't need this allowance, that is the dart. You don't use it, you don't need it on the yoke. You only make use of these parts and cut it out. Now, while cutting it out, remember we need 1/2 inch on the upper side. So we are going to cut out, we are going to measure 1/2 inch on upper side so that we use it to cut it. So let's use this black to measure it. That is the 1/2 inch we are going to need to join it. This 1/2 inch is to join it. Do you see it? We are going to use it to cut. We are going to cut it out while cutting our... Do you see it? We are going to use this 1/2 inch to cut it out. Now, on this side, remember, using this 1/2 inch now, you have shortened the yoke. So while cutting your yoke, try to add 1 inch. 1/2 inch to replace this that you have taken away to join to the main body, and 1/2 inch the one that you will use to join the yoke to the main body. Don't forget that. So now I'm going to cut it out. Remember, this on the underbust is not going to be sharp, and in this way we are going to use our curve to make it to be a little bit curved so that it doesn't look sharp when you are cutting it on your material. So So now we have used our curve to make it look more beautiful, so that when you are cutting it, it will be straight. Now guys, do you see our top that we have just cut out our draft? Do you see it? That's the draft that we have just cut out for the strapless top we are going to make. I'm making a strapless top, so I don't need this. I don't need the yoke. So this is what I need. So I'm going to use this now to place on my material and cut it out. So now let's draft the back. Now guys, this is my back panel. So now the back panel is the easiest to make. So now remember, you need your zip allowance, which you have seen. I have marked my 1.5 inch allowance is my zip allowance, and after that comes my measurement. So now the next thing is to measure is the measurement, the vertical measurement, which you see. What we need is the chest line, the waistline, the hip line, and the same allowance. That is the vertical. Now the horizontal, remember the chest is, the bust we are using is 42 divided by 4 is 10.5, and the waist is 8.5. That is 33 divided by 4 is 8.25, but I made it 8.5. And the hip is 39 divided by 4. I have 9.75, but I made it to 10 inches just to give that little ease. 10 inches, that is this line you guys are seeing now. So now the nipple to nipple is 5 inches. Then I will now bring it down to also the hip. I'll bring it down to the hip. Then I will now connect it to the waist. Remember, I've already connected from the chest line down to the waist, as you can see. So from the waist now, I'll connect it to the hip. Do you see it? I connected the hip. And on this hip, I'm going to go up. On this hip, I'm going to go up by 2 inches. Because I don't want to cut the back open. So I'm going to go up by 2 inches. And on these 2 inches, I'll connect it to the 1/2 inch that I took away as my dart from the waist. I'm using 1/2 inch as my dart at the back. So 1/2 inch on both sides. So I'll connect it to the waist. And also I'll connect here to the waist. Do you see it? So this is my dart. My dart is 1 inch. From both sides, I took away 1/2 inch. So my dart is 1 inch. So now, having measured the vertical and also the horizontal, remember on this chest line, I came down by 1 inch. Do you see it? I came down by 1 inch from the chest line. From there, I connected it to the 1/2 inch on the waistline. So that's the dart that is going out at the back, but I'm not going to cut it open. I'm going to hold it in this form to sew it from the wrong side. So I hope you guys know about that. So now, being a strapless top that we are making, we don't need this upper side. And how do you want it to be? You can decide to cut it from the chest line to be straight. You make use of your tube. You can decide to do that. But I would like to come down by 1/2 inch from the chest line. Do you see it? This 1/2 inch here. Then I marked it with a black color to join to the 1/2 inch here from the armhole. Because it's a strapless, I don't need this side. And I want it to be a little bit down. So I mark it. So from here now, I'm going to cut. But before then, remember to add your seam allowance. So this dart we are going to take off here. We are going to replace it here. On the waist, we are going to replace it. Remember, on this upper part, because I'm not cutting it open, so I don't need anything. So I'm going to also maintain my 10.5 inch here, but I need seam allowance to sew it. So I'm going to add 1.5 inch. And also on the waist, I'm going to add 1.5 inch as my seam allowance. And also the hip, I'm not going to cut this open, so I don't need any allowance to join it together. So I'm going to add also 1.5 inch. So now let us use our block to connect our added allowances. So now this is our added allowances, and here is our where we are going to cut out our strapless top. Also, if you want to use it as a yoke, this you also cut out in the other material to use as a yoke. But remember, while cutting it out, I'm going to add 1/2 inch here. I've added 1/2 inch allowance here. So now guys, let's cut it out. Also, if you are using it as a yoke, determine your neckline. As you can see, there is a neckline here. I use 3 inches. I don't want it to be as deep as that of the front. And also on the shoulder, remember your 1/2 inch allowance. So if you are using it as a yoke, you are going to have something like this. If you are using it as a yoke, you are going to have something like this. Do you see it? And remember, while cutting it on your material, add 1 inch, extra 1 inch here, because you took away 1/2 for the allowance of the body, and you have to replace the 1/2 and also have to join it to the body. So please don't forget that. So now this is our back block. This is our back block. If you want to cut it open, just take this line down to the waist and also cut it open and add 1/2 allowance, 1/2 inch allowance at the waist, at the sides, while cutting it on your material. And also on the up, cut it open from the up till the down and add 1/2 inch seam allowance to close it up. But I'm not cutting it open, so this is the block that we are going to use. So if you are cutting it open, remember your allowance. So guys, this is our drafted pattern. This is the back pattern and this is the front pattern. So you can draft yours in this manner and you will now use it to achieve. If you want to make it a strapless, you only use this and you don't need this. If you want to add a yoke, you cut out your yoke. Remember to add your allowances. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to stop here. In the next video, I'm going to use this to place on our material and cut it out, and we will now fix it together. So please continue to support me by liking my videos, sharing my videos, and also commenting on my videos. And if you have not subscribed, subscription is free. Please support me by subscribing to my YouTube channel. I love you guys and I'll continue to be sharing my knowledge with you. See you in the second part of this video. Bye-bye.